position in the company, please?
My name is Roger Franzen. I'm the General Manager of Auspace Limited here in Canberra.
Roger, can you just tell me a little bit about what Auspace is and what it does?
Auspace is a space systems engineering company that participates not only in space hardware, and we have hardware flying in orbit right now, and some more that's waiting on a European satellite in the Netherlands, waiting to be launched at the end of this year. We also participate in satellite communications from an analytical point of view, as well as the terrestrial side, and we've done a lot of work for our Defence Department in those areas. We look at satellites from the point of view of communications, and we look at satellites from the point of view of remote sensing and observation as well. So we have a broad spectrum, but focused in the space industry environment.
Can you give me one example, and you have given me a couple there, one example of one technical piece you've got up to?
Yes, in fact, at the moment, the European Space Agency's ERS-2 satellite is flying an instrument called an long-track scanning radiometer. It measures sea surface temperature to 0.5 degrees C and enables people to determine such things as the El Niño effect, where fish stocks might be located. And the heart of that instrument, the infrared focal plane array, was built here in Canberra by us. And it's flying and performing extremely well.
Excellent, excellent. I need to get some footage of that too if I can. Can you discuss a competitive advantage that you believe you have with regards to comparison from other organisations, be they here in Australia or internationally?
Within Australia, Auspace is probably the only company that participates exclusively in the space environment to this way. Although there are others now starting to realise a need, we still have quite a head start. On the international scene, I guess Auspace isn't indeed a hard competitor because of the level of industry that has undergone over the years in other countries. To give you an example, there's probably about $60 billion worth of space business done every year. Now, Australia's component of that is minuscule compared to those of Europe, the US, and China, and India, and places like that, for instance.
And how then does Australia compare in the space industry internationally?
Well, surprisingly, despite that apparent disparity, Australia has an extremely good basis of engineering and technical capability. Our universities produce top-flight people, and unfortunately we lose a lot of them overseas to that $60 billion cloud over there. But those that we retain, who are still very good, do an excellent job, and we are probably cheaper than most countries in the sort of work that we're doing, and we're innovative. As Australians, we like to innovate. We like to see better ways of doing things, and we don't like being entrenched in the ideas of other generations. So we have a competitive edge because of our youth, our innovation, good technology, ability, and competitive pricing.
I've just finished a multimedia interactive CD on business innovation, interviewing a whole range of people nationally, 90 case studies, and I'll tell you about that.
Yeah, cool.
Why is the space industry important? Why is it important to Australia?
That's a very good question. Many people don't realise just how much our society now depends on the space environment. Satellite communications, the moment you pick up a telephone call, you don't know whether it's going via a cable or via satellite. In many cases, it's a mixture of both. The information that we have on our weather comes from satellites. Remote sensing now is helping us to generate geographical information systems which can click with a mouse on a computer down to a level where you can see from satellite a house, and you have overlaid information on that house, the people that are living in there, the number of people in there, the size of the block, what services are provided. So the use of space technology in our environment today is pervasive, but we don't see it. It's almost invisible. Yet we spend in this country anywhere between $150 to maybe $500 million per year on other people's technology. So we need to do something about it.
If you could do something about it, if you could do one thing, what would that one thing be?
Well, I guess it's educating. It's exposing just precisely where that expenditure occurs. Because it is invisible, and because it doesn't perhaps attract as many jobs, because it's a high value-added industry, we don't need armies of people to create it. But it is a case of educating not only the companies that might have a capability to participate, but also our government to understand that there is a cost there. There is a real cost to this country, and the more of that cost we bring back, the more imports we replace and bring back into this country, the better it is for our nation.
Let's go to government now. Can you tell me, are there any government programs that you've found supportive, or can you make a comment with regards to the government and its relationship with the industry?
Certainly, the government has a lot of good programs that are there to support industry, to get over these hurdles of investment. Investment in this country, I might add, in the commercial sense, is still very unwise about the space industry, and there are some programs that have gone perhaps a bit sour overseas in recent times and have made them even more wary. Yet, there is an opportunity to invest. Where there is a difficulty in getting the Australian commercial environment to support investment, the Australian government has put in place such things as START and other TDP type programs to provide some of the funding, not all, but some of the funding towards getting industry over that hurdle and making it happen. Seed funding, I guess, in the research and development areas.
Why then should overseas companies invest in Australia or invest in our technology?
That's a very good question. Well, Australia is in a key position with probably 60% of the world's population just to our northern boundaries. That's a huge market. Yet many of those countries are probably just a little bit too unstable politically and economically for other more stable investors to consider investing in. However, if they were to use Australia as a stepping stone and to take their technology and develop it from here and then import it into those countries, export it into those countries, then I think there's a very strong argument, combined with our good economic stability, our good political stability and excellent, as I mentioned before, technical base and cheap dollar at the moment. I think it's a great place to invest.
If we can jump now to launch proponents and launch sites, what advantages are there in having those facilities here in Australia?
Well, it certainly is a catalytic effect as much as an economic one. Catalytic because to use the space environment, you first have to get there. And what we put into space is really just infrastructure that's there to generate information which we use on the ground, and we add value, even more value to it on the ground. The launch environment enables us to put that infrastructure into space. Now, if we don't have a launch vehicle or a launch industry here, we've always got to go to somebody else. Admittedly, not all of the returns that might be spent in this country on launch vehicles would stay in Australia, but there's a large percentage of it that will, and that's important. It's a facilitating catalytic effect.
What would you say to somebody, an organisation, a government representative who may or may not have a chequebook ready? Is that noise all right in the back?
Yeah, it's pretty low.
May not have a chequebook ready to sign. What would you say to them to get them to come over and be involved in Australia?
Well, we now have a very flexible legal infrastructure, regulatory and legislative infrastructure for launch systems, and we certainly have a geographic advantage in many instances. Certainly for a range of orbits that can be addressed from launch vehicles. We don't have our own launch vehicle, but that's not a problem. There are a lot of launch vehicles that can be migrated to new launch sites. So what we're doing is really creating the launch sites and the infrastructure and the political, legislative infrastructure to make these businesses happen. And all of those are now happening. Our government has spent a lot of time doing good work in the legislative area to make that happen. So right now we're very receptive as a nation to new investment. So it's a good time to come and talk.
What about the future of Auspace? Where are you in 10 years' time?
10 years' time, oh goodness, that's a dangerous crystal ball. In 10 years' time, Auspace will be heavily involved in satellite communications service provision. It will be more involved in the provision of specialised instrumentation into orbit to suit firstly Australians' needs, but secondly to service the rest of the world and therefore to generate a good revenue on those instruments, the data that those instruments provide. Remember, the satellite is just a piece of infrastructure that's there to create information. You don't have the infrastructure, you don't have the information. You don't own the infrastructure, you don't own the information. So it's important to have somebody in this country that can either do a lot of or manage a lot of subcontractors to do the whole project, and certainly Auspace is in that role. So we will have an increasing role in provision of space instruments, service provision of satellite communications, and specialised support services into our government, both on the civil side and on the defence side.
Given the market objective of this production and its promotion characteristic, is there anything else you'd like to say about the Australian space industry?
It's young by comparison to other nations. It's stumbled along for many years because of this education issue, I guess, the realisation as to why we need it. It's all out there, why do we have to do it? But to give you an example very quickly, if you own a remote sensing satellite, and you can look into other people's backyards whenever you like, so you can tell when their crops are going to fail or be successful. You can position yourself in the marketplace competitively against that nation. Australia can't do that at the moment. It doesn't own that infrastructure. So it's the realisation of almost invisible elements of both use and availability of space technology that Australia has to have. So I think we need to be smarter about why space is there.
Marketing information.
Marketing information.
You happy?
I'm happy if you're happy.
Well done, mate. Thank you.
Pleasure.
That is very important to remember, because what normally happens